All right, thanks for joining us here. We are back on the air here, KSLA News 12 at 5. I'm Doug Warner. Let's get straight to Chief Meteorologist Jeff Castle. Yet another tornado warning. This has been a pretty endless few hours here for us.
Yeah, and basically in the same areas of the Arklatex, mostly across the far southern portions of the area. We talked about this right before the break, that potentially maybe a tornado warning would be coming out. Well, it has. It does include you now in Sabine Parish, although the most dangerous part of this storm has just entered Sabine County in Texas, west of Toledo Bend Reservoir. So you've got a while to get to your shelter if you are here in Sabine Parish. But Zwolle, you are in the path, and perhaps Manny down the road, although right now the tornado warning area does not include you in Manny. But areas around Zwolle, west to Toledo Bend Reservoir, you need to be seeking shelter for the possibility of a tornado. We'll go ahead and dive right in here and take a look at the latest data with this storm as it is coming on through. And there is rotation. I mentioned that before the break, that this storm was rotating, and that circulation is showing up here again across northern parts of Sabine County in Texas, just northwest of Milam, Texas. Looks like in the vicinity of Texas 21 and Texas 103 there. So this has not yet made it into our coverage area, but it is tracking in that direction. In fact, let me show you exactly where this is going to be headed and when it is going to be arriving. Again, the circulation just northwest of Milam. This will pass north of Milam, Texas, but on a track to the northeast could bring it to Zwolle. 5 o'clock your time now, and 5:35 estimated time of arrival, again, for the potentially tornadic part of this storm, moving out of Sabine County there in Texas, and it will be headed into Sabine Parish here in northwestern Louisiana. So again, still a bit of time to prepare for this as it moves into our coverage area, and we'll have to wait and see if the circulation maintains itself. Right now, yes, it is holding on there. The color scheme, the radar that we're using, the closest one is in Fort Polk, just south of the Arklatex. Red colors are where the wind is blowing away from the radar. The green is where the wind is blowing toward the radar. The radar can sense that by tracking the raindrops, whether the raindrops are moving toward or away from the radar. So via that, it can determine what the winds in the storm are doing. So if you take a look at this, you get a sense of counterclockwise circulation showing up in this storm, again, right off to the northwest of Milam. So there's your circulation, counterclockwise. And that is what has prompted the tornado warning that does include you folks in Sabine Parish. Let me take a look at the bigger view here. I want to show you what all we're tracking. There's also a severe thunderstorm warning that has just come out for parts of mostly Webster Parish as well. We'll take a closer look at that in just a second. Our tornado warned storm that we were on the air for moments ago in Natchitoches, that has moved into Wynn Parish. Technically, the warning has not been canceled for Natchitoches Parish, probably needs to since the storm has moved out of the parish. So even though you may still be getting an alert and seeing on the screen that there is a tornado warning for Natchitoches Parish, that storm has moved out of the parish, so no longer a threat there. This one, though, is our most immediate concern. And as I mentioned in our 4 o'clock newscast, hopefully this may be the last one that comes through. Got Doug here in the studio, always helping me out.
Make it real brief. Just talked to Sabine County. No word of any damage. In fact, she was like, you again, because they have been under the gun quite a number of times today. But again, no word of any damage reports yet out of Sabine County.
Okay, all right, so that is some good news. Again, this is radar indicated rotation, so no confirmed tornado touchdowns here. Let's take you up here to the north, because we've not really been talking about severe weather potential, or at least severe weather occurring with any of these thunderstorms in the northern part of northwest Louisiana up towards I-20, but that has changed. Severe thunderstorm warning has been put out here for parts of Bossier Parish, primarily Webster Parish, and for portions of Claiborne Parish, and it's for this storm which has flared up here near Heflin, Louisiana. And this one is tracking off to the northeast fairly quickly. So let me show you the time of arrival on this one. And we'll track this one for a little bit because, again, the storm there in the southern part of the Arklatex has actually not quite entered our coverage area yet, but we will get back to an update on that in just a second for you folks in Sabine Parish. But again, you still have a little bit of time before the most dangerous part of that storm crosses the Texas border into your area. Again, this is a severe thunderstorm warning moving out of the southern part of Webster Parish. This is going to be moving through Minden here shortly, within the next 10 minutes. Already seeing some heavier rain showing up around I-20 there, just south of downtown Minden. The storm, though, will be coming on in. Well, there you see the latest update, and it looks like it has already started to move into Minden as we speak. And it's going to continue to work its way towards Dorcheat, eventually towards Homer, there in Claiborne Parish by 5:42 with this storm. Main concerns out of this one is going to be for some strong wind gust. Let me pull the track off of this, and I do just want to get a closer look. You know, this is what I spend a lot of my afternoon doing when we're tracking severe weather, is I'm constantly looking inside of the storms to see if there's any sort of rotation showing up. And in this case, for this storm, again, moving through Webster Parish right now, I'm not seeing anything concerning as far as any rotation, but perhaps some hail, which we are seeing. Looks like we had some of that short time ago, close to Doyline. If you take any pictures safely of the hail, I'd love to see it. I had a few folks share some photos with me of hail in Sabine Parish with a earlier storm today that looked like it produced some nickel to quarter size hail. So if you snap some pictures of the hail, we love to see those, likely sharing them on social media, or at the very least, folks that go to our website and our news and weather apps can check those out. And that's the easiest way for you to upload those to us, because you're already taking pictures with your phone. I know you are. I don't use a regular camera anymore. I use my phone. So if you go to either the news or the weather app, there's a section where you can send us your photos. So it's very easy to transfer those over your phone from your photo roll to us via the app. So if you have some hail pictures, we'd love to see that. Any sort of damage that may occur, that helps us tell the weather story as well. But again, it looks like we did have some hail, maybe nickel to quarter size, or you saw the latest update as that has been moving through parts of Webster Parish. So that's likely the greatest threat here, maybe to a lesser extent. Some winds up to perhaps 60 miles per hour. That could also be a possibility. That severe thunderstorm warning, by the way, does go until 5:45 p.m. So hail probably our greatest threat, but maybe some strong wind gusts as well. Just checking out some of the latest info here from the National Weather Service that I'll share with you. Talking about the difference in the severe weather threat, that the severe weather ingredients up towards I-20 are not as robust as what we have in the southern part of the area. And that's the main difference why we still don't think storms here in the northern Arklatex, even though we have a few, are going to be posing a significant severe weather threat compared to the storms to the south. But nonetheless, we'll continue to watch these. Again, stronger thunderstorm moving through Minden right now. It is tracking off to the north and east. We'll be heading into, excuse me, Claiborne Parish. So anywhere from Homer to Haynesville, just keep in mind this storm's headed in your direction, potentially bringing some hail and maybe some gusty wind along with it. But at least last look, looking inside the storm, looking to see what the winds are doing, no indications of any significant circulation and therefore any sort of imminent sort of tornado threat out of this one. Another thunderstorm developing here, northern parts of DeSoto Parish, the heaviest part of it moving into southern Caddo Parish. So if you're in South Shreveport, as this moves northeast, we'll be bringing some heavy downpours over here into the South Bossier area, similar story. Nothing severe being indicated with that storm. In fact, we take a look at the hail product here. Maybe a little bit of small hail, but certainly looks like the larger hail potential is showing up there in parts of Webster Parish right now. All right, let's get you back down into the southern part of the Arklatex. Again, we had our tornado-warned storm in Natchitoches Parish. That one is well into Wind Parish now, out of our coverage area. Trailing area of showers back towards Natchitoches, nothing of any concern. And again, our tornado-warned storm still on the Texas side of Toledo Bend, but it is getting closer. So if you are in Zwolle, and you haven't made your way to a tornado shelter yet, I'd recommend that you go ahead and do it in anticipation of the storm coming on in. Still potentially producing some hail out of this. Let me take a look at the latest info on the hail. Nothing that really jumps out here, but let's take a look at the circulation in this storm. I will say it does not look as strong or as organized as it was when the warning came out, and I hope that trend continues, but nonetheless, the storm is still rotating. Again, the reds are blowing away. The green colors are blowing towards the radar, so you get this sense of counterclockwise rotation showing up on the southwestern flank of this storm, which is typically where we will find it. And the shape of the storm kind of curves around on the back end. The reason it does that is because of that rotation that's happening within the depth of the storm. Starts to wrap the rain in a counterclockwise direction there on the back side. So still has the shape of a rotating storm. The velocity data is still indicating that, yes, there is rotation in the storms. Maybe not necessarily in the lowest part of it or close to the ground. And again, the rotation is not quite as strong as it had been. We can take you back an hour or so. Let's just go back 30 minutes, and we'll show you. This is what the storm looked like at 4:57. A little more well-defined there with the reds and the greens kind of smacked right next to each other. We bring you back up to the current time, though. It's not quite as strong of a signal. It was pretty well-defined, a lot of green and red right next to each other. Now, not so much. There's some gaps here, some lighter colors. So again, it appears the circulation, at least in this part of the storm that we had been monitoring, is not as strong as it had been. But tornado warning does continue, and keep in mind with some of these storms, and we kind of saw this, the storm that came through Natchitoches Parish had the tornado warning on it that is now in Wynn Parish. That storm started all the way back here near Broadus, Texas. That's where we had a tornado warning. When the storm moved across Toledo Bend, the circulation diminished, so a tornado warning wasn't in effect for you folks in Sabine Parish, but from Manny to Zwolle, you picked up some larger hail because there was still at least some rotation in the middle to high part of the storm, but not necessarily in the lower levels. But then when that storm tracked into Natchitoches Parish, we started to get an increase in the rotation and a lowering closer to the ground of the rotation, and that's why the tornado warning came back out. My point being that these storms, once they get to rotating, they can last for a while, and they can go through cycles where the rotation wanes or re-strengthens. So the tornado warning likely is going to be kept for the time being unless we totally see this circulation go away. But nonetheless, I still want you to be headed to your shelter. If you are here near Zwolle, Manny, we'll have to wait and see. You are not included in the warning area. In fact, I can show you exactly what that warning area encompasses here in Sabine Parish. It does include you in Zwolle. Again, it does not include you at this time if you are in Manny, but anywhere from Zwolle all the way down LA 191 westward to Toledo Bend Reservoir. Again, be seeking shelter for the possibility that this storm may start to spin back up just a little bit. Again, right now, not even seeing any significant hail with it. This would be some smaller hail. Maybe some dime to penny sized hail showing up, moving from Texas 87 here in Sabine County across Toledo Bend, southwest of Zwolle. They're heading into Sabine Parish, so not a real strong signal, at least of large hail. And as far as wind shear goes, there's been a little bit on the low end of the scale here, but this is what prompted the warning. When we start to see little wind shear showing up in this product, it means the storm is starting to spin just a little bit more. But perhaps, and again, based on the latest data, maybe that spin has waned a bit as this storm has been passing north of Milan, Texas, and I hope that that continues to be the trend. So we're still watching this one for you. Not, I believe, an imminent tornado threat. Again, the rotation is still here. It's not as what we call tight or well-defined as it was. That's a good thing. That's what you want to see happen on radar. You want to see the rotation lessen and not intensify. Let me run down the watch here again. This tornado watch goes until 7, so this is not something that we're going to be dealing with all night long. You're going to be able to go to bed at normal time this evening. So that's some good news. Tornado watch, though, Sabine, Natchitoches Parish, still think that's where the greatest risk of any sort of tornado activity is going to be. The good news is, though, we've not had any reports of any tornadoes touching down. We've not had any reports of damage. So even though there have been a couple tornado warnings, it appears that nothing has touched down. Northern parts of northwest Louisiana, just south of I-20, you're included in this watch if you are in DeSoto, Red River, as well as Bienville parishes. I think the threat for tornadoes extremely low, and even the threat that we're going to get additional severe weather in this part of the Arklatex should also remain pretty low as we take you through the rest of the day. We are in our 5 o'clock newscast, so let me go ahead and just show you a little forecast data as well as we're continuing to wait for this storm to move into Sabine Parish and waiting to see if that circulation and the rotation continues to spin down just a little bit, as has been the trend. But here's the latest with FutureTrack, and I tell you this all the time with FutureTrack, it's not going to nail the precise details. So no, it's off on the placement of storms. What we look at, though, is what is the model telling us that's going to happen. Picking up on the storms here, generally near and to the south of I-20, northwest Louisiana. A couple of those are stronger. Again, a little off on the placement. But showing more intense storms showing up in the far southern Arklatex and just off to our east and northeast. So what I want to check here, what's the trend? How's all this going to evolve with time? And also notice, and I mentioned that that storm in Sabine County, Texas, maybe is the last one. Well, FutureTrack also indicating that could be the case, at least what it is showing us here. So we'll march you forward here, take you through the next couple hours. So this is at 7 o'clock. Still a couple lingering showers and thunder showers, southern parts of the Arklatex. Around I-20 here in northwest Louisiana, the rain that we have currently in place likely winding down by early evening. And notice the more intense storms indicated by the purple and even some black showing up, those are pushing away from our coverage area here in the Arklatex. So it does appear that the severe weather threat is indeed, as expected, going to end through the early evening hours. It'll likely persist into Mississippi and Alabama this evening and tonight, but at least for the Arklatex, I'd say by 7 o'clock, 8 at the latest, we're going to be done with any threat of severe weather. And much of the rest of tonight, quiet, although you do see here around 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe a few more showers or perhaps a rumble of thunder, not expecting a severe weather threat out of this. This is actually going to be a cold front moving on through, so this line of showers kind of marks where that front will be located around 1 in the morning, entering the southern part of the Arklatex, and that is going to, in turn, clear us out and dry us out. So by the time you're waking up tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., should be clear skies, but probably going to be a little chilly. I won't say probably. It is going to be a little chilly. We'll be in the 30s and 40s, and only expecting highs in the 50s tomorrow, but we are back to sunshine and dry weather coming up at that point. So let's get in here again and just give you the latest update on the storms that we have moving through right now. Get a couple warnings. We have a severe thunderstorm warning for this storm at Webster Parish, moving into Claiborne Parish, some hail, maybe some gusty wind with that. We'll take a closer look at it in just a second just to make sure there's no rotation showing up. Tornado warning, though, does include you in Sabine Parish, and that is for the storm moving right over Toledo Bend Reservoir. Again, I will say this storm has become less organized than when the tornado warning came out. Let's get in here and get the latest on the circulation. We're looking at radar out of Fort Polk. Reds are blowing away from the radar. The green is where the wind is blowing toward the radar. Still have counterclockwise rotations showing up there. That's the Fort Polk radar. I can also take a look at the radar out of Shreveport, which is a little farther away, and therefore looking up a little bit higher in the storm. But it's showing the same thing, counterclockwise rotation. The greens are blowing toward the radar. The reds are blowing away. So there's your circulation showing up. Nothing that is super strong, but still rotation showing up nonetheless. And we can check out the wind shear product, which has diminished. as we talked about a moment ago. In fact, here's the wind shear over time, going back an hour or so, and you can see when the warning came out, when the storm was in northern parts of Sabine County, Texas, northwest of Milan, we were picking up that low-level wind shear. Now that the storm is moving across Toledo Bend and into Sabine Parish, that wind shear has diminished. So that kind of fits what we were looking at with the velocity, that the velocity signature is not as strong, and therefore the low-level wind shear showing up with the storm also appears to be diminishing. All that means is that the tornado threat, at least for the moment, appears to be fading with this storm. But tornado warning does remain in effect. In fact, it looks like we just got an update here. The warning was canceled for Sabine County in Texas as the storm is out of there. It does continue for Sabine Parish. Again, the rotation is radar indicated. There have been no reports of damage, no reports of anything sighted on the ground. But this is continuing to move its way northeast at around 35 miles per hour. So let me track that for you. The storm is moving into Zwolle right now. Maybe some small hail, some heavy downpours associated with it. But at least for the moment, tornado threat, I believe, has diminished with this storm. We'll track back to the west as it's moving to the northeast. Zwolle coming in, again, in the next 8 minutes, at least this back part of the storm, which is where the rotation's located. I've drawn this down as far south as Manny. I think Manny might get clipped by the southwest flank of this storm. That still looks to be around 543 or so. The Loring area somewhere in between at around 531. If this storm continues to look like this and not get any more intense, I have a feeling that the warning will probably be allowed to expire, just based on what I'm seeing on the radar right now, as there's nothing incredibly alarming showing up with this storm. But the tornado warning does continue for a little bit longer. Take a look at a few other things here. And this is pretty well it at this point. Let's see the bigger picture here. Got this storm. There's nothing behind it, it would appear, at the moment. This will be a larger radar loop that'll take you back over the last 3 hours. So you notice the storms coming through. The most intense ones have been here where we expected they'd be, Sabine, Natchitoches Parish in particular. Others stronger, occasionally, at times, thunderstorms moving through the rest of northwest Louisiana. There's nothing of any concern if you're up here towards I-30. There's nothing out to the west. We talked about this yesterday. This was not going to be a big line of storms that was going to come west to east across the Arklatex, which is what we get the majority of the time here. This was a different setup for us, where we're only expecting the severe weather potential here in the south, and northern parts of the Arklatex probably wouldn't even get any raindrops, at least through the afternoon hours. I know we did have some mist, some drizzle, and a couple showers around earlier this morning. But notice to the west and the southwest, there's nothing else coming on in. So once we get rid of this storm that is moving through Sabine Parish right now, and some of these other storms that are around I-20 east of Shreveport, we're done. There's nothing developing to the west or southwest of the Arklatex that's going to come on in. The severe weather threat's going to continue east of us. Notice a lot of Mississippi, parts of Alabama. They're going to be dealing with this for a while. That is where the threat was highest. There have been a lot more tornado warnings across parts of Mississippi, and I've even seen a few into Alabama. So that is where the severe weather threat will remain maximized as we work our way through the remainder of this evening and tonight. Here in the Arklatex, it does look like that severe weather threat is going to be winding down here within the next probably 90 minutes. I do think pretty close to 7 will be it for us. So we got really 2 storms we're monitoring. This one moving through Wynn Parish out of our coverage area. We've got our storm, which is moving through Claiborne Parish right now with a severe thunderstorm warning, and our tornado warned storm showing up down there in Sabine Parish. Let's take a look here closer to the I-20 corridor. A little more rain coming in, parts of Bossier City over towards Houghton, Doyling. You'll see this little thunder and lightning, some downpours Nothing severe showing up out of this. Our severe warned storm now is located in Claiborne Parish. And that one, let me take a closer look here. Still may have a little small hail with it. I'm still getting indications of that. Here along Highway 79, just northeast of Minden, so in this western portion of Claiborne Parish, this is tracking towards you in Homer. So you may see a little small hail out of this, but nothing that looks necessarily like damaging hail. Nothing big enough that I think would do any sort of significant damage, but maybe some dime, penny-sized hail. That may be the worst of it. And at least in a few others of these storms, might get some pea-sized hail. The storm moving through Bossier Parish, again, some indications, but it's at the very lowest level, which means very small hail, not going to cause any problems, just some heavy downpours there. And even down here into Sabine Parish now, some indications of just some small hail. So you folks in Zwolle that got some nickel to quarter size hail a little bit earlier, I don't think you're going to get a repeat of that with this particular storm at this time, as it's just not showing indications of that. Still have a tornado warning, though, for this part of Sabine Parish, including you folks in Zwolle, so you do need to be headed to your shelter to be on the safe side. We are still seeing circulation. I mean, it's still here. It's still here. Reds are blowing away, green toward. Let me circle this area. Right in here. Sorry about my artwork. But right in here, this is your circulation, general area of circulation. Nothing that looks super concerning, but it is there. And we still could perhaps spin something up. Our debris tracker, not really seeing anything concentrated. What we'd be looking for is where that circulation is, kind of a concentrated little circle of where we have these less bright colors, some yellows, some greens, some blues perhaps surrounded by the orange and the red. Just don't see that happening. So that indicates that it's unlikely that there is anything on the ground with this particular storm. But there is still some rotation showing up with it here in Sabine Parish. So just to err on the side of caution, if you are here in Zwolle, it's tracking in your general direction. Manny, we'll have to wait and see what the storm is going to do. But let me track out the entire storm from near Zwolle and just a little west. Moving to the northeast. We'll take this out in time. Natchitoches, you may get hit again by yet another storm. This would be, I believe, the third one to come through town this afternoon that's had some sort of warning associated with it. Zwolle, again, you're getting the heavy rain right now. The area of the storm that I'm tracking, though, back to the west, which is where the circulation is, that is still several minutes out, 3, 4, 5 minutes out or so. If this does continue into Natchitoches Parish, maybe we get an extension of the warning, although right now I would say the chances of that are low, just based on how the rotation looks now compared to when the warning comes out and the fact we've had no reports of anything out of this storm. But it's possible. It's possible we may see the warning extended into Natchitoches Parish. So Robeline coming through around 6:05. I know I've said Robeline several times this afternoon. Natchitoches, I know I've said at least 3 times now. You would be in the path of this storm if it continues to hold together and poses a severe weather threat coming through in about an hour from now. But again, at the moment, it would appear that we don't have a significant tornado threat. But let me take another look here. Just a little rotation right along LA 191, southwest of Zwolle. And looking at the radar out of Shreveport, picking it up in the same area. Again, the vicinity of LA 191, southwest of Zwolle. So there, Zwolle, and a little south, I need you to be in your shelter. Possibility that something could still spin up here. No update from the Weather Service, at least about this storm. They are talking about storms there on I-20 east of the Arklatex. Conditions look a little bit more favorable for severe weather. But again, that will be as storms are exiting our coverage area there along I-20 through northeastern Louisiana. So this is all we got right now that's of any immediate concern. But the circulation still showing up here. So the tornado warning does continue. It is passing just south of the center of Zwolle. Zoom in a little tighter here, show you precisely where this is. Along Louisiana Highway 191 near the Mayfield Loop, near Bucky Murdoch Road, near Brandon Road. So this is where the circulation is coming on in. Again, this is just now a little south, it appears, of Zwolle. See where Zwolle is relative to the circulation. So just south of the center of town, here along LA 191 is where the rotation is located right now. And this is radar indicated. We've gotten no confirmation. There you see the latest update. And it's still showing up here, just a little southeast of Zwolle. That's the center of town. Let me show you precisely how far out of town it is. Just a couple miles. Just a couple miles from downtown Zwolle is where the circulation is showing up. Next up, it's going to be crossing, looks like US 171 there to the southeast of Zwolle. So the circulation is still there. It's not gotten any weaker, but at the same time, it's not gotten any stronger. But it is still fairly well defined. That's the Shreveport radar. The radar, which is slightly closer, which is Fort Polk, though, looking at a lower level of the storm. The lower level rotation, which had been there, now appears to be going away. I'll take you back a few frames. There, we still had, some rotation in the lowest levels of the storm. Now, it appears, at least in the low levels of the storm, the rotation has kind of diminished just a little bit. Still occurring a little bit higher up in the storm from the Shreveport radar. So still, I won't discount the fact that this could maybe spin a little bit more. It does look like they have extended the warning, though. This now includes you in Natchitoches Parish, so let's update you on that. I said it's possible that the warning would be extended, so it has been. But at least for the moment, it appears the tornado threat has diminished. But again, sometimes these storms can go through these cycles where rotation or the tornado potential goes down, but then can increase again. So let's show you the latest warning. I'll take off the radar data. So here's your new warning. So this does include you in Robeline. Does not include you in Provençal or Natchitoches yet. Again, the storm is beginning to pull away from Zwolle, so if you're in Zwolle, if you've been in your shelter, you can safely come out. The storm is beginning to pull away from town, so the threat has ended for you. Manny looks like the most dangerous part of the storm will stay just north of you, but tornado warning now has been extended into Natchitoches Parish with this particular thunderstorm. But again, no indications that there's anything imminent tornado-wise. Warning now goes until 6:15 this evening. So I would say at the moment the threat is for a tornado is low. It's not zero, but I would say it's low. Again, the most dangerous part of the storm pulling away from Zwolle. Circulation likely crossing US Highway 171. Again, that's the radar out of Fort Polk. Lower levels of the storm, I'm just not seeing anything real alarming. You do look at the National Weather Service radar out of Shreveport. Even it's kind of looking less alarming right now, but still a little bit of circulation showing up here right along 171. They're southeast of Zwolle. Let's take a look at what we're tracking. I'll go ahead and circle it. So there's your circulation. There's the debris tracker. There's really nothing coincident with it that would indicate something that is on the ground. So Another look at the wind velocity. It's still there to some degree, but I would say it continues to look like only a low chance. But the storm, if you go back over time, you can see, looking at the wind shear, and this is often how we go back and we determine where tornadoes may have touched down and gone through. So you can follow this wind shear track. Again, when the tornado warning came out, increase in the wind shear as it passed Milam, wind shear kind of fizzled a little bit, maybe picked up just slightly here as it was passing just south of Zawali. But again, nothing that is incredibly concerning to me on radar right now. But with that said, I still want you to get to your shelter here. If you're east of Zawali, here in Sabine Parish, looks like this circulation is very closely going to parallel Louisiana 120 to some extent. So the storm is moving northeast. For the most part, should stay just south of LA 120. But if you are in that vicinity of Sabine Parish, near and south of LA 120, I want you to be seeking shelter for, again, the possibility that this may spin up a tornado as this storm continues to track its way off to the east and the northeast into Natchitoches Parish. Let me track it out for you. Again, this is headed towards you in Roebeline. Looks like now around 6:07 into Roebeline, about 30 minutes from now. Into Shamrock by 6:05, Loring. Basically, the circulation is moving right into Loring right now. Into, I think, Hagewood, coming up by 6:16. Warning does not include you if you are in Provençal, does not include Natchitoches. Maybe eventually, if it's extended even beyond this, would include you there in Clarence. But again, right now, the overall threat looks, in my opinion, to be fairly low. That we have a tornado imminent. But I still want you to take some tornado precautions just to be on the safe side, just in case this storm decides to ramp up a little bit more. Let's kind of reset the view here back to the northwest of this potentially tornadic storm. A couple other showers developing. Nothing of any big concern near Huxley, outside of Carthage. We've got a heavier shower that's moving on through. Take you into northern Louisiana. Got a heavier thunder shower here moving through Houghton. Nothing severe out of this. Our storm, which prompted a severe thunderstorm warning, which probably needs to be trimmed back a little bit because the storm is now Homer into the northeast here in Claiborne Parish, continuing to track in that direction. Some thunder, some lightning, probably still some hail showing up out of this near Homer. But again, the hail is small. In fact, radar estimating 0.3 inch in diameter. That's pea, maybe marble-sized at biggest. And that severe thunderstorm warning, I believe, expires in about 9 minutes anyway. So I don't think it will be, well, this will drop. Might be reissued as the storm moves out of Claiborne Parish and on into, I believe, Union County there in southern Arkansas, but that will be out of our coverage area. So, again, just kind of resetting the view here for you. Got some thunder shower activity along I-20 northward, maybe a little hail, a little gusty wind, but nothing that looks too incredibly strong, mostly just some downpours. And then we do have our storm here in northern parts of Sabine Parish. It is going to be going into Natchitoches Parish near Roebeline in the next 30 minutes. Does have rotation with it. That's why we have a tornado warning on it, although, again, at this point, not super concerned about tornadoes touching down at the moment with that storm. But we'll take a closer look here in just a second. Let's take another look at tornado watch. This goes until 7. I don't think this will be extended, in our area at least, beyond this time. There may be another tornado watch covering areas east of the Arklatex that will replace this after 7 o'clock. I don't believe it'll include any of our parishes that we cover. So it's mainly going to be northeast Louisiana and on into parts of Mississippi where there may be another tornado watch going into the evening hours. But when this one expires at 7, I really don't anticipate that anything is going to be reissued, at least for our coverage area. Case in point, let's run through the forecast again, and then I'll get back into Sabine Parish. We'll take another closer look at our storm moving through there. Going to look at future track here, which is picking up on the storm activity around south of I-20 primarily. There's really not much happening across the rest of the Arklatex, and the greatest risk of severe weather remains across the far south. We'll take you forward from here through 7 o'clock this evening. Stronger storm activity moving out at this point, nothing coming in back behind. So once these storms that we have currently in place move out, there's not going to be more that's going to be taking their place. And in fact, as we take you through the rest of this evening and tonight, here's 9 o'clock, really starting to quiet down for most areas. This little thin strip of clouds that you see right around the I-30 corridor at 9 p.m., that's cold front. Might get a couple showers that develop along that during the overnight hours, but not expecting any severe weather. And notice here to the east into Mississippi, that's Jackson, Mississippi right there. At least Future Track says maybe they could be dealing with more severe weather there, heading through the mid-evening hours, which is why I anticipate probably another tornado watch will take over for areas to the east of the Arklatex through the remainder of this evening and tonight. But for us, here's 1 o'clock in the morning. That cold front at that point will be located from just south of Ruston, northern Natchitoches Parish, northern Sabine Parish. A couple more showers may develop along with it, but severe weather is not expected to occur with that. And again, by tomorrow morning, this is around 6 a.m. tomorrow, cold front will have cleared us. Skies will be cleared out tomorrow. Good-looking day, at least from someplace warm. It'll be sunny, it'll be dry, blue sky out there, but a good bit chillier. Today, if you spend any time outdoors, it was warm. We made it well into the 70s. It was very humid as well. Tomorrow's going to be a different story. It's going to be much chillier. Highs will only be in the 50s. And we're going to have a bit of a northerly breeze that's going to make it feel a little bit colder. In fact, let me show you our expected highs for tomorrow. These are your highs on your Wednesday. Low to mid-50s in the north. I-20 southward, probably upper 50s to around 60. So big change from what we had today around the area, but no storms that we're going to have to worry about. All right, let's get you updated here on what we're tracking. And we'll show you the wide view of the radar. Don't have any updates on our storm in Sabine Parish, but we're watching it. Couple spots of storms here, mainly Webster, Claiborne Parish, a couple other areas of showers back towards Carthage, a little east of Center, Texas. Sabine Parish right now, that is where all the severe weather potential lies right now with this particular storm. It's still rotating, still has that look. Here's the main core of the storm, the main rain area, and then the precip kind of wrapping around the back end. Keep in mind these storms rotate counterclockwise, so when you see the precip kind of wrapping around counterclockwise as well, you can tell just by looking at the rain pattern that this storm is rotating. And certainly when you go and you look inside the storm at the wind velocity and what the wind is doing, again, the radar can determine is the wind blowing toward me or is the wind blowing away from me. Radar we're using right now is in Fort Polk. Reds are away, greens are toward. Counterclockwise circulation showing up here. Also a little bit of a strong gust of wind. We can see that as well. I get back to the radar view. This is the radar out of Shreveport. Similar story. There's rotation here. I wouldn't say anything that really catches my eye and screams, we've got a tornado imminent. I do think there's probably some strong wind here along the leading edge of this southwest flank of the storm. Sometimes can get some winds that can be upwards of 60, 70, 80 miles per hour. I think that's a possibility. And then usually where those winds kind of meet the main body of the storm, that's where you can get a little tighter area of spin that develops. So that is what we're continuing to watch here with our storm. Tornado debris signature, not seeing anything that's really jumping out and catching my eye that's saying, yes, there's something on the ground. but we're watching that. The wind shear product, also just another way of kind of checking what the storm is doing. And again, this has been sporadic. A little wind shear showing up when it was north of Milam, kind of diminished as it crossed Toledo Bend Reservoir there at Texas-Louisiana border. Increased a little bit again outside of Zawali, and then as it's been passing Zawali, it's kind of decreased a little bit. So I think at the moment this storm probably has more of a straight line wind threat for areas off to the northeast of Zawali than it does a tornado threat. But closely monitoring what the storm is doing. We'll zoom in here a little tighter. Show you where we do have perhaps some strong wind kind of blowing away from LA 175 here in Sabine Parish. And then this is going to be tracking into Natchitoches Parish along LA 120. Again, where we see some stronger wind and maybe some circulation is going to be very close to or kind of paralleling LA 120, moving out of Sabine Parish on into Natchitoches Parish. Probably some hail still associated with this storm as well. You can kind of see it here when you get into the purple color, looking at the radar. That's often an indication of some larger hail. And we did see a little bit of an uptick there. This is a few minutes old, so perhaps some larger hail showed back up here near the junction of LA 120 and LA 175. This would have been just moments ago. Hail size maybe up to quarters, 0.9 inches. Quarter size is an inch in diameter, so almost quarter size hail. At least that's what the radar was estimating. So I think this storm still at the very least has the potential to produce some larger hail. Storm is still circulating, but maybe more of a strong, damaging straight line wind threat at this point as opposed to tornado potential. I will track that threat for you as well. That may be what moves into Robaline. Let's track just this part of the storm. Let's say moving kind of east, maybe northeast. Robaline, again, close to 6 is when this will be coming on in. Shamrock, about 5 minutes before then, around 5:55. Where the storm is kind of bowing a little bit. This kind of looks like a bow, even has a little notch here on the back side of it. That can be an indication of some very strong wind that's developing here, perhaps on the order of 70, 80 mile per hour winds that are coming in here, northern parts of Sabine Parish, north of LA 6, and near and south of LA 120, going in from Sabine into Natchitoches Parish. So I think we are seeing perhaps some very strong wind potential here. And kind of where you see the storm kind of come to this little juncture here from this line of wind to where it meets the main body of the storm. This is where we have to watch for maybe some a little spin up to occur. So let's take another look here at that, at the radar product. And yeah, we're kind of seeing that. This area around LA 120, maybe a little tighter rotation starting to happen here. I think we got a couple things going on. This big band of green, that's strong straight line wind coming out of the storm near and south of LA 120. And then right here in the corner of Natchitoches Parish where it meets Sabine Parish, where LA 120 crosses from one parish into the other. If we're going to see a tornado spin up, I think that's where it's going to happen. So if you hear again along and just south of LA 120 now, heading into Natchitoches Parish, I want you to get to your shelter just to be on the safe side. Lowest level, the building that you're in. I want you to put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. It's important to protect your head from any debris that may be flying if a tornado were to touch down. And if we were to see something develop here tornado-wise, it's most likely going to be in this southwest corner of Natchitoches Parish now, moving out of Sabine Parish, right around LA 120. So if a tornado is going to develop here in the next little bit, this is where it's going to form. So I need you to go ahead and take your tornado precautions here. Let's zoom in a little bit tighter. Show you exactly where we're talking about. So you got a report of some dime-sized hail and some tree limbs down northeast of North Toledo Bend State Park. Oh, that was from the previous storm that moved through. That was from a previous storm. All right, so this rotation, looks like we got a new update. It is showing up in the vicinity, again, LA 120 now, Natchitoches Parish, Manny Marthaville Road, Main Street here in a little west of Zawali, or excuse me, a little west of, northwest of Robeline. So circulation is approaching the intersection at LA 120 and LA 487. So it appears the rotation and the tornado potential is out of Sabine Parish now with this storm. It is in Natchitoches Parish. Now maybe it's going to pass a little north of you in Robeline. So let me get a new track on this. So Robeline, it appears, if there's rotation, it's going to track north of you. You may still get a gust of wind coming in on the southern flank of this storm, but moving through Marthaville right now. And if it continues on this track, maybe towards Powhatan by 613, and Wood there in Natchitoches Parish coming up around 618. So still seeing the circulation showing up here. Looks like more tornado warnings east of the Arklatex are coming out. So here's our storm. Again, this part of the storm right here, that's some strong wind, maybe higher than 60 miles per hour. Purple color that you see here near Marthaville, that's likely some large hail coming on through. And then right here, close to where it says LA 120, that's where your circulation is, and at least the possibility that something may spin up. So again, if you're here from Marthaville to just north of Robeline, it looks like this storm, as it's tracking here, it's tracking more on the northern edge of the tornado warning. So even though Robeline, you're included in the tornado warning, right now, based on the track, probably going to see the circulation head just a little bit to your north. So north of Robeline, back to Marthaville. Again, be seeking shelter for the possibility of a tornado. Again, still very close here, kind of tracking near Louisiana 120 there in Natchitoches Parish. Still the possibility that we get a tornado out of this. Tornado warning does go until, I believe, 6:15. So until 6:15. For primarily Natchitoches Parish now. It does look like the circulation is just outside of Sabine Parish, but not by much. Again, our other storms, northern Arklatex, and nothing of any big concern. Severe thunderstorm warning was allowed to expire. We've got another heavier thunder shower here near Minden, a couple other spotty showers back to Stonewall. Little thunder shower there east of Carthage. None of these showing any signs that they are intensifying or going to pose a severe weather threat. So again, it still looks like this far southern part of the Arklatex. It's what we talked about yesterday, that this would not be severe weather widespread across the area. It would be limited to kind of the southern and maybe eastern edge of the area, and that is how it's turned out. We're waiting on this storm to go away, and we've still got a little while before it's going to do that, probably another hour or so. You see the latest update on it. Again, if we have a tornado, it's kind of tracking here on the northern edge of that tornado-warned area. So there you see the update. So the circulation that we have on this storm will pass north of you and now in Robeline. So Robeline, a little bit better news for you. It has come through Marthaville. It is tracking northeast. Again, maybe towards Powhatan, maybe towards Campty. Natchitoches, we're watching it closely. I know you've had several storms come through today. This one, though, if it continues northeast track, probably would take it just a little north of town. Sometimes these storms, though, they can turn a little bit to the right, especially if they do start to spin a little bit more. So Natchitoches, don't want you to let your guard down. No tornado warning for you at the moment. We'll have to wait and see if this is extended again. It's possible that this will be extended a little bit deeper into Natchitoches Parish. Here's the latest on the wind velocity. Let me circle the rotation. Right in here. Getting right along LA 120. Now it is crossing 120. It will be crossing LA 485 here in Natchitoches Parish. And maybe eventually, if the circulation holds together, going across this red line, that's Interstate 49. And again, perhaps passing just north of Natchitoches. And that is the only storm of any consequence that we got going on. So either get this one to kind of fizzle or move out of the area, and I think we'll be done at that point with any threat of severe weather. Again, it's been confined here. Basically, Sabine, Natchitoches Parish, that has been it in the Arklatex today for really any sort of significant tornado potential, with the exception of our one severe thunderstorm warning that came out around the I-20 corridor east of Shreveport just a short time ago. But otherwise, this is it. No reports of anything. This has all been radar indicated. Not even seeing any reports of any damage. Let me see if we've gotten any new pictures in. No, just a couple pictures of some hail from earlier with some of these storms. And I'm not seeing any other new information. Check the debris tracker. Again, nothing showing up coincident with the circulation that would indicate something on the ground. Wind shear product's been kind of up and down with this particular storm. The storm is not quite going away. The circulation is not quite disappearing. So that's why the tornado warning continues in the event that circulation tightens up. But it's been kind of back and forth. Let me show you again what we've been tracking with this storm. Keep in mind the wind shear often matches up to where we see the rotation. And in many cases, we can go back and we can determine exactly where a tornado tracked through based on the wind shear. So warning came out here in Sabine County, Texas. The wind shear had increased, decreased as it went across Toledo Bend. Maybe increased briefly southeast of Zwolle, decreased again, and then right here at the junction of Sabine and Natchitoches Parish off to the northeast of Zwolle, had a little bit of an uptick in the wind shear again. So the circulation with this storm, although it's not necessarily anything that screams tornado on the ground, nonetheless, the storm is still rotating. And it is possible it's going to encounter some area, some little chunk of the atmosphere along its path here in Natchitoches Parish where it may just tap in to the ingredients that make it spin a little bit more. So once you got a storm that's spinning, that's what you always have to watch for. You have to watch for something to come along to make that spin increase. So as long as the storm is rotating, we may continue to see the tornado warnings come on out unless that rotation just starts to really fall apart. So we'll have to wait and see if this tornado warning is extended. I think just based right now, if the storm does not change structure from what it is right now, probably will be extended just because we're not seeing the storm really decrease in structure or intensity to any great degree. At the same time, we're not really seeing it ramp up and get more intense or that circulation to increase either. So just kind of maintaining, I guess, the status quo right now with this storm. But it's still at least enough of a risk that it could spin up a tornado, that those tornado warnings do continue with this particular storm. Let's kind of zoom in here a little bit closer. A couple things I'm still watching where the storm kind of bows out a little bit here on the southwest flank. I think that's probably some strong wind, 60, 70 mile per hour wind, perhaps. Where that meets the main body of the storm, if we're going to see a tornado spin up, it's probably going to be in that general area. So Roebeline, just off to your northwest. So Roebeline, I don't think that we have a tornado threat for you. You might get clipped by some of this strong wind Even that, though, may pass just a little north of the center of town. But I do want you, if you are, and let me track this out again, where this could be headed. And at some point crossing I-49 here in the next little bit. Hyam 623, that's kind of way out here. Natchitoches, it's probably going to pass just a little bit north of you. Let me back this out. I do want to get you folks in Powhatan in a track on this. So again, here north of Roebling. No, still not taking in Powhatan. It'll be close. Campty by 625. Natchitoches, I think it's going to pass north of you unless the storm changes direction. That would only be because of an increase in the circulation that may cause it to maybe move a little more east as opposed to northeast. But we'll say Campty to maybe near Powhatan. Campty to be coming in around 625. The warning goes until 6:15. Not gotten any reports of anything touching down, of anything doing any damage. Not even seeing any reports of some large hail, although I do think there probably is some hail in this. Maybe nothing too big. There's the hail core of the storm. That's also passing north of you in Roebling. But maybe up to some penny-sized hail, maybe some dime-sized hail. That's certainly a possibility. Storm is still rotating. There's your circulation. North of Roebling. Getting ready to cross LA 485, so still rotating on both radars. There's the radar out of Shreveport, still picking up the rotation as well. Let me see, I just saw my phone flash, and, well, nothing new. Well, severe thunderstorm warning is now out. Okay, here we go. Here's the update. Okay. So unless the Natchitoches Parish storm cycles back up, the plan is to allow the tornado warning to expire, which was going to be at 6:15, and follow up with a severe thunderstorm warning. It says the storm should stay north of the city of Natchitoches, as I've been mentioning. So let me see. They did issue a severe thunderstorm warning. They canceled the tornado warning. Okay. So with that in mind, let's just kind of wind things down here. Producer in the booth, just to let you know, tornado warning has been canceled, has been replaced with a severe thunderstorm warning. So severe thunderstorm warning for Natchitoches Parish, tornado warning has been canceled simply because the storm was not getting more intense, hadn't really been losing in intensity, but also there were no reports that there had been any sort of tornado touchdowns or damage. So with that in mind, tornado warning has been canceled for Natchitoches Parish, been replaced with a severe thunderstorm warning. So it's still the possibility for some hail, and I think some strong wind. I think some strong wind here approaching LA 485. This is going to miss Natchitoches. It is going to pass, it looks like, to the north. Powhatan, you're getting in on some of this. Campty, the storm is tracking in your direction as well. So do prepare for a severe thunderstorm capable of producing some heavy rainfall, maybe some hail up to quarter-sized, and perhaps some wind gusts over 60 miles per hour. With that in mind, again, the tornado warning has been canceled, so there are no active tornado warnings for the Arklatex. And once this storm leaves Natchitoches Parish, probably in the next 30 to 45 minutes, I think we're done with any potential for severe weather for anywhere in the Arklatex for the remainder of this evening on into tonight. So we're just going to go ahead. I'm going to send things over to Doug. We are going to kick off our 6 p.m. newscast at this time. Doug?